Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a really fascinating dilemma. Anyone looking to improve their mental well-being or peak performance eventually hits this exact crossroads. Do you choose the deep, psychological healing of traditional therapy, or do you go for the rapid, behavioral changes promised by Neuro-Linguistic Programming, better known as NLP?
It really all boils down to one fundamental question. Do you want to genuinely understand your problem, or do you just want to fix it? Think of your mind kind of like a house. Now, if you notice a crack in the wall, are you the type who prefers to dig way down into the foundation to see exactly why it's settling? Or would you rather just redraw the blueprint and build an entirely new room?
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the why versus the how, take a look at the origins of NLP, and then unpack the NLP practical toolkit itself. After that, we'll look at traditional psychology's established evidence, navigate the science divide between the two, and finally, help you figure out how to choose your own path. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the why versus the how, and their very different starting points.
Traditional psychology is fundamentally about the why. It's this deep, exploratory journey of self-discovery, right? It focuses heavily on diagnosing mental conditions, exploring past causes, and really digging into the unconscious mind to figure out exactly why a specific problem is happening in the first place. NLP, on the other hand, is entirely about the how. Instead of asking why something is broken, it acts as a direct, goal-focused toolkit for immediate, present-moment changes. It's really only interested in how your thinking patterns are working right now and how you can adjust your behavior quickly.
Moving on to Section 2, let's look at the origins of NLP and this history of mental frameworks.
Let's move to and see how this builds over time. Psychology obviously has very deep historical roots, starting way back in the late 19th century with Sigmund Freud pioneering psychoanalysis and digging into repressed childhood memories. By the mid-20th century, Aaron Beck developed cognitive behavioral therapy, which shifted the focus a bit toward present thought patterns. But then, fast forward to the 1970s at UC Santa Cruz, a mathematics student named Richard Bandler and a linguistics professor named John Grinder developed NLP. The thing is, they didn't actually want to create a brand new psychological theory. Instead, they just observed highly successful therapists and simply asked, what exactly makes them so effective?
This led to the meta model, which is widely described as the very first model in NLP. You see, early NLP was fundamentally all about modeling linguistic patterning. Bandler and Grinder were aiming to uncover the exact step-by-step structure of what made excellent communicators so incredibly effective. They mapped out highly specific questioning techniques to clarify thinking and challenge limiting beliefs. It was, essentially, an early attempt to reverse engineer human charisma and effective therapy.
Pretty wild, right?
All right, Section 3, the NLP practical toolkit, or basically hacking the mind.
Let's break down what neuro-linguistic programming actually means. Neuro is about how we experience the world through our nervous system and our thoughts. Linguistic is about how the language we use shapes our emotions. And programming refers to those unconscious patterns or strategies that we just run on autopilot. It's almost like having the source code for your own brain. NLP assumes that if you can change how an experience is represented in your mind, how it looks, sounds, or feels to you, you immediately change your emotional and behavioral response to it.
There's this famous quote by Alfred Korzybski, "The map is not the territory." And this is literally the absolute core presupposition of NLP. What it means is that we orient ourselves by our internal representations of reality, our mental maps, and not actual reality itself. Therefore, if you can consciously change the map you hold in your head, you literally change your entire experience of the world.
So how do you actually build those better maps? Well, through a process called modeling excellence. This involves 3 distinct steps. First, you observe highly effective behavior. Second, you code the precise patterns of language and thinking behind it. And third, you transfer that skill to others. Bandler and Grinder essentially treated human excellence like an IT problem. They genuinely believed that success could be observed, coded into explicit steps, and then metaphorically downloaded straight into anyone else's brain.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how practitioners use these core techniques to make those changes happen. Let's look at a few. Reframing changes how you interpret a situation, say, instantly turning a perceived threat into an opportunity for growth. Anchoring creates a physical or audio trigger, maybe like listening to a specific song, to instantly evoke a calm emotional state.
Submodalities involve adjusting the actual sensory details of your mental imagery, like mentally dimming the lights on a bad memory to just instantly lessen its emotional impact. And finally, visualization is mentally rehearsing successful outcomes before they even happen. Basically, NLP allows users to consciously manipulate their own mental dashboard. It's almost like having a volume knob for anxiety, or a fast-forward button for building a new habit.
Section 4. Psychology's evidence, the standard of care.
Now we have to talk about the flip side. Unlike NLP, traditional therapies like CBT and psychodynamic therapy are backed by decades of rigorous scientific research. We're talking numerous peer-reviewed studies that have proven their effectiveness in controlled laboratory settings. And this is absolutely crucial when mental health is severely affected. When we're talking about deep-rooted trauma, clinical depression, or personality disorders, psychology's evidence-based, long-term emotional processing is widely recognized as the trusted, necessary medical standard for healing.
Which brings us to Section 5, the science divide, efficacy versus controversy.
So, the crucial point really comes down to a single number: 0. Yep, 0. A really comprehensive 2019 academic review investigated 90 different articles on the topic of NLP, and they found absolutely 0 empirical studies offering scientific evidence for the effectiveness of coaching based solely on NLP tools and techniques.
This creates a massive divide. Mainstream psychology views NLP as lacking peer-reviewed evidence, very often labeling it as pseudoscience with absolutely no clinical validation. However, on the other side of the fence, NLP practitioners defend their methodology by prioritizing practical results and subjective experience. As one of the original NLP texts boldly states, they measure their worth by usefulness over truthfulness. Their argument is basically this: if a technique helps a client quickly overcome a phobia or suddenly gain confidence, well, that practical anecdotal result matters far more to the person than a laboratory test ever could.
Finally, Section 6, choosing your path. What do you need?
Now, what's really interesting about this side-by-side breakdown is how clearly the approaches differ. Psychology is your tool for deep emotional healing. It focuses on the why and is backed by incredibly strong evidence, making it perfect for complex things like trauma or depression. NLP, conversely, is your toolkit for fast behavioral shifts. It focuses on the how. It's driven entirely by practical results, and it's best for everyday things like boosting confidence, communication, and changing daily habits. But keep in mind, many professionals actually combine these approaches out in the real world. They'll use psychology to heal the deep wounds and then use NLP tools to adjust present day-to-day behavior.
Which brings us to our final thought for the day. When you are facing your very next challenge, will you dig into the why to uncover the foundation, or will you pull out the toolkit and hack the how? Think carefully about what your current goals truly require. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you choose the right path for your mind.